Over the last years, I have been sometimes tracking circumference, and sometimes I have not. Why have I not? Because it is time intensive. It adds just a couple more minutes to my currently weekly measurement regimen that takes maybe 30 minutes in total. And so I have not been doing it for multiple years. I have been doing it before. I actually recently got this, but then, so this is basically a device that should simplify how easy it is to measure by having this spring load in there that then allows you to get this out. But since it recently tore off, I then had to tape this together, and now it doesn't go out. So this pin here doesn't go out of this, and then you can take the measurement from here. But then you still have to type it in somewhere. There are devices that would be smart, so you would just press a button and then it would transfer to the app. There is a device that would cost 30 euros. I have been thinking about this device specifically, but what I have been trying to do in the last years, or what would be ideal, I think, is to have one app, one service, one dashboard where most of your health data and also fitness data accumulates. In this case, I chose Garmin. It's not that Garmin is so good, it is just, I think, the best that there is. Samsung Health, for example, is the thing I used previously for this purpose, and I still have also the Galaxy Watch on me to continue basically measuring steps and so on and so forth. But Garmin seems to be a little bit more potent in terms of what you can do. It also offers integration with Insight Tracker and something else. But what it does not offer is circumference inputs. And so I have been using a different app, which is this Scale app. I have also been using Excel before this, and what the app does specifically is it gives you a kind of way to measure. Now, before this, I noticed that the variance of the measurements was very high. So I would have one measurement of my biceps, for example, that was like 2 centimeters higher. Now, this also might be due to water retention, due to mostly probably glycogen, but what it also might be is a lack of measurement standardization. So if you take your upper arm here, and then the next day you take it here, not the next day, maybe the next week. I also thought about the frequency of measuring things like circumference, especially because circumference is somewhat annoying to measure, I think. Not that it is annoying, of course, if it makes sense, then I do it, and if it doesn't make sense, then I don't do it. So I didn't do it for the last years, mostly because time is somewhat infinite. But what I then don't have is the circumference measurements I actually need for some apps. So I do have an app, or rather a service, that is called eGym. And this comes free with my gym membership. In my gym, there are a couple of machines where you can take 1 rep max test. These then are basically accumulated, and with these measurements, mostly you can also input your own exercises and your 1 rep max for these exercises. You then get a strength age. You additionally can input a cardiovascular. So your cardiovascular age is a combined score out of your blood pressure, your resting heart rate, as well as a third metric, which is your VO2 max, which conveniently Garmin gives me as one metric, based on an estimate on my weekly runs at this point in time. And then it has a third age, which is the metabolic age. And this metabolic age relies on the waist to hip ratio. And for this waist to hip ratio, and in order to update this age once a week at least, so I update the strength measurements every time I work out at the gym. I take one rep max test at these 6 of these machines, and this takes me maybe 1 to 2 minutes, and this then updates basically 3 times a week. I tried it previously at also once a week, but at this one day I don't usually go to the gym, so it was sometimes I did, sometimes I did not. But I wanted to have at least a weekly update of this age, of this biological age. And so I need also to measure at least my wrist and also my hip in order to have the waist to hip ratio. Now, the reasoning behind this is, I think, mostly is that the abdominal fat has a more negative effect compared to subcutaneous fat, which is the fat that is under the skin. So if you have basically fat in between your organs in your abdominal cave, then this seems to negatively impact health more. And therefore, the waist, basically here, to hip ratio then says something about your health. And for this reason, I need still the circumference, at least these two values, and I still then measure all of these other values. I have been thinking about getting something else, which would be a smart circumference measurement device. Now maybe in the future there would be a camera which sees you and knows how tall you are, and then basically based on the proportions of the camera it can measure out. So maybe if you, for example, measure the biceps from here to here, it then can measure out how it then can basically calculate the circumference that is most probable, and then you could maybe measure it like this over time. Maybe also track body fat like this over time, which I don't know. But then it depends on the lighting, and so I don't know if there is a solution like this already. So what I've been doing in the last months is I've been taking the circumference measurements in addition to the other measurements I do on a weekly basis, which are grip strength and also expiratory flow and also glucose. I have been taking these and they take lots of time, and so I've been thinking about how to optimize this. And so the one solution would be to get this smart thing. I already have this, which is a little bit better than the other one because you only have to hold one end, but now since it broke I cannot get this pin out any longer properly. And so I have been thinking about buying a device that would automatically send the whatever it measures to an app. And the app I'm already using because my scale also works with this app, but the problem then is that I still don't have these circumference measurements in the one platform I would use mostly, which would be Garmin. So unless Garmin makes a device like this and also allows circumference inputs, I still don't have it then in Garmin.